Please like and subscribe.
This is why you should never Google yourself. Some of us might have done it once or twice, but for Anora Petrova, one simple search led to horrifying consequences. Anora had always wanted to be an ice skater. She was young, talented, successful, and had a famous trainer. The night before her first big championship win, she felt more anxious than usual. For fun, she Googled herself and came across a Wikipedia page saying that she would win. When she did win, Anora thought this must be a coincidence. But every time after that, the page would predict whether she won or lost. She checked it every single time, almost addicted to refreshing that site. When she was about to compete in another huge competition, she decided to manipulate the website by changing the outcome it predicted. But instead, it said, Anora Petrova is going to get what she deserves. Right after, she was accused of sabotaging another girl's skates, which ended up slicing her in the forehead. Even though Anora denied it, she was banned from the competition and was dropped by her trainer. She thought this must be the worst of it until she checked the website the next day and saw a terrifying message about her. If a website ever asks you these questions, don't do what she did. Once there was a girl named Masha who heard that there's a new service that gives everyone free internet access, so she decided to use it, but this would lead to something horrifying for Masha and her family. After she connected to this internet service, a web page popped up asking her to register some information, but the questions were oddly personal. It asked, what's your usual mode of transportation? With a photo of a bus, a boat, a train, and a plane. Masha took her bike to school every day, so she clicked on the train instead. But the next day, the local news showed that there was a horrific train crash that killed everyone on board. Masha thought that this was a coincidence, but soon she'd realized that she made a deadly mistake. Later, she needed to use the internet again, so she logged back in. This time it asked, what kind of home do you live in? Along with 4 different pictures of different types of homes. She clicked apartment even though her and her family lived in a house. And the next day, the apartment building near her school burned down. The police suspected arson. Then she went back to the internet server one last time, but this time it showed a photo of her mother, father, sister, and herself with the question, who is your favorite family member? What would you do if someone said this to you? Once there was a girl in Korea who got in an elevator in the apartment building that she was living in when a stranger came in and told her something that was absolutely terrifying. This stranger came into the elevator with her and tried to make some small talk. He looked at the elevator buttons and said, oh, I see that you live on the 14th floor. I live on the 13th floor. She gave him a friendly response and even tried to flirt a little bit. She thought that he was attractive and wondered if they would get to know each other. If you're ever running late for something, don't do what she did. Once there was a girl who had a huge crush on a guy in her class. One day, he finally asked her out on a date and she was so excited, but things quickly took a terrifying turn. On the day of their date, the girl went to the mall, got some new clothes, and spent over an hour trying to get ready. By that time, she was seriously running late, but she had just taken a shower, and her hair wasn't dry yet, and she didn't have a hairdryer. This is when she made a horrible mistake. Because she was out of time, she had to find a way to dry her hair. If you ever want to wear a wig, don't do what she did. Talia bought a wig one day that didn't fit, but instead of returning it, she did something that quickly became terrifying. She came up with an unusual idea. This was her first mistake. She searched for ways to alter the wig herself. Then she went into her mother's room, took out a sewing kit, and began working. But Talia actually decided to put the wig on first and sew it in front of a mirror. She thought this would make sure the size was perfect. Afterwards, she was actually really satisfied with the result. Then that night, Talia went to take the wig off, but the wig seemed to feel much tighter than before. But she had school early tomorrow, so with one pull, she took the wig off. Then, without looking, she put it in her closet. That night, she woke up to a wet sound ringing in her ear. She tried to go back to sleep, but realized that her dog had come onto her bed. She pet her dog and went back to sleep. It wasn't a big deal. But the next morning, she noticed something strange in her closet. The wig didn't look the way it did before. It was covered in pieces of blood and skin. Then Talia went into the bedroom and turned around. She realized that she had sewn her own scalp into the wig, then ripped it off. In the back of her head, she could see her own skull. Then she realized why there was a wet sound ringing in her ears last night, and she began screaming. If you're ever driving late at night, don't do what they did. One night, a boy and his friend were on their way to a school dance when they saw a girl on the side of the road looking lost. They stopped the car and asked if she needed a ride, and she asked them to take her home. They said that they were going to a school dance and asked if she wanted to come too. She agreed. But these boys wouldn't know yet that this girl was not an average hitchhiker. So they all got in the car and the girl sat in the back seat. After a while, the girl would constantly say that she was cold, so one of the boys gave her his jacket. They got to the dance and things were pretty normal, but what happened after would make the boys question reality. When the night was almost over, it was finally time to take the girl home. When they almost arrived, the girl told them where she lived, but told them to drop her off close by so she can walk the rest of the way. So that's what they did. But after the girl walked away, the boy who let her borrow his jacket realized that he never asked for his jacket back. His friend said that they could just come back tomorrow for it. The next morning, they came back expecting to get the jacket and leave, but things were not so simple. They came up to the girl's house and knocked on the door, but they were shocked at what they discovered as soon as the door opened. Follow for part 2.
And that's a wrap with today's video. Remember, I post a new video tomorrow.